Hey y'all, it's Raj with EV365, and today we're going to do a range test on the Rivian R1T. All right, y'all, so we're here inside the Rivian R1T, and we're going to do a range test. And it's crazy. I've had this truck for about a year. We just hit the 1-year anniversary yesterday, and I really haven't done many performance videos on it. We've just kind of been enjoying the vehicle and doing videos on some of the other cars we had. So now we're finally going to get around to doing the stuff on the R1T, and it'll be good. So we've got a little over 10,000 miles on it. So we'll kind of get an idea of how things look at the 10,000 mile mark. So today, we're going to do a range test. We're actually driving from Austin to San Antonio. We're going to go check out a basketball game. We're going to stay the night down there, celebrate New Year's, and head back tomorrow. So we'll get a little bit of possibly some range loss, letting the vehicle sit overnight. We're not going to charge overnight. And again, the way we do our range test is just to kind of get a real world feel of how the mileage looks. So it'll be myself, my 2 kids, a 10-year-old and a 5-year-old, and my wife, and then some luggage. So we won't have a completely empty vehicle either. And we've got the R1T Quad Motor. It's the original one that came out. And we've got the 21-inch wheels with the aero caps. So that may bring a little efficiency. And I also just recently got the manual tonneau cover. So we don't have the R1T with the automatic tonneau, but we did get Rivian's manual tonneau cover. It finally shipped. We've actually got a unboxing video on that, so check that out. And so we've got that on, so that may help a little bit, reducing some drag there in the back. And since we got the Rivian, when we first got it, Rivian estimated at about 325 miles of range at a full charge when you're in conserve mode. They've since done some software updates, and now you can get I think up to 350. So we're charged to 100%, and what we're showing in conserve mode is 348 miles. And we may not burn through all of that on this trip. We'll get, we'll do the entire trip and just see where we end out. And then we'll kind of, based on how we were doing on the trip, we may calculate out the rest of it. But we'll see how we go or how close we are to it at the end of the trip. But we'll at least try to get below 10%. And just to give y'all an idea to how the range changes based off of what mode you're on, you can see here on the screen, it shows you the different modes, and I'll zoom in and show y'all a picture of that. But on conserve mode, it's the guessometer is showing about 348 miles. In all-purpose, and in conserve mode, it's just in rear-wheel drive. Then in all-purpose, which is the mode I typically drive in, it estimates at about 315 miles. And then in sport mode, the little more performance mode, you don't lose a lot from all-purpose to that. It's estimating about 311 miles. But on this road trip, since we're trying to go there and back without charging up, we're going to use conserve mode, and that'll obviously give you the most range as well. All right, we're on the road, and one thing I forgot to mention is our truck has the large pack, which is the kind of the standard pack that Rivian offers. So it's a 135 kilowatt hour pack about. So all of our range estimates and everything are based off of that, and they're also based off of all of our previous driving. So it kind of takes that into account. So like I said, we're at 100%, and it's estimating about 348 miles on that. So we'll see how close we get to that. And on the video, I'll try to check in every 25%, but we'll track how we're doing every 10% and put that in the chart at the end. All right, we'll check in later. Thanks. Hey y'all, so we just got to our first stop here in San Antonio, and we drove about 95.5 miles. And our average speed was 59 miles an hour. So there, we had some traffic. We were at highway speeds going about 80 for some of it. And temperature today is good. It's 70 to 75 degrees. Sun's starting to set, so it's getting a little cooler. So we had the AC running, but it wasn't having to really run too much. So perfect weather for doing a range test. And yeah, on this trip, so right now we're at 95.5 miles traveled. And our efficiency, we're seeing about 2.1 miles per kilowatt hour. So we've used up 46 kilowatt hours on the trip. So it's showing we've got 65% of the battery pack left, and the guessometer's showing 232 miles. So yeah, we'll check in after this stop just to see if we lose any charge just from the gear guard running, and then we'll continue our trip. All right, we just made it to our final destination for this trip, and we are at 58%. Guessometer showing about 206 miles of range left, but we traveled 121.4 miles, and we were driving an average speed of 56 miles per hour because we did have some traffic start and stop. We're on the highway for a little bit of it, and on that trip we averaged about 2.11 miles per kilowatt hour and used up 58 kilowatt hours. So yeah, we're at 58%. We'll let the car sit overnight and see if we lose any power with the car just sitting there and with gear guard on, and then we'll continue the trip tomorrow. All right, thanks. Good night. Hey y'all, it's the next day and we are ready to take off. And good news, actually, we let the car sit overnight. It was pretty chilly. Got into the upper 30s, low 40s, and we actually didn't have any vampire drain at all. We got here with 56%, projected 201 miles of range, and that's what we're leaving with. So that's good news. I know when I first got the Rivian, we would lose quite a bit of juice with it sitting overnight. So it sounds like Rivian, with some software updates and things like that, have tightened that up a little bit. So that's good. So yeah, we'll continue the trip. We're gonna head back to Austin from San Antonio, and we'll tune in at the end and let you know where we finished off, let you know how the efficiency looked, and how many miles we got, and we'll see how close to 0% we get. We won't get quite there, but we'll get as close as we can, and then kind of extrapolate out and see how the range would have looked. Hey y'all, we're back in Austin. After the road trip, we traveled 231.8 miles. We left yesterday, stopped and watched a basketball game, then stayed the night in San Antonio. We didn't charge up overnight. Didn't actually lose any range or predicted range or percentage on the battery pack overnight, which was good. And now we're back in Austin, and temperatures were good both days, anywhere from 60 to 70 degrees while we were driving. Traffic on I-35 between Austin and San Antonio was actually relatively smooth. We didn't really get stuck in a lot of traffic, maybe just a little bit when we were leaving the basketball game yesterday. But a good trip. We celebrated the new year, and now we're back here in 2024, back home. So like I said, we did 231.8 miles. We're back here at 15% of the pack left. So didn't quite get down to the 10%, but 15 is pretty good. Should give us a pretty good idea of where we're going to be. And on this trip, we averaged 2.1 miles per kilowatt hours, and we used up 111 kilowatt hours. So the Rivian pack is 135 kilowatt hours. The large pack is. And we're not quite sure how much of that is usable, but if we use that to kind of scale up, we should, at this efficiency, get another about 50 miles, maybe a little bit more. The guessometer here is showing 53. And of course, as the trip went on, the guessometer kind of adjusts what the predicted mileage is. So I always like to recommend to folks, don't use that when you first start a trip as your true number of what you're going to get out of the pack. That's based off of ideal conditions. It does take into account some past driving, but for the most part, obviously, if you're driving on the highways, you're going to drive faster than what's the most efficient speeds. Anything above 70, you start losing efficiency. On this slide, you'll see that we plotted the percent of battery used versus the range achieved at several points throughout the trip. So we did take a reading at every 10%, and then at a few points in between when we made some stops at the basketball stadium and then for the night. And as you can see, the R1T throughout the trip was seeing a pretty steady efficiency of miles per kilowatt hour throughout the trip. The only time we saw a little increase was when we got to San Antonio to the basketball stadium and we got caught up in some traffic getting to the parking lot. And you see that kind of right in the middle at about 45%. And that's expected when you're driving really slow. You're seeing some benefits of regenerative braking and you're not using as much battery because you're not having to accelerate or you're not driving at high speeds. And we'll dig into some of those numbers a little further here on the next slide. All right, so on this slide, we're summarizing some of the numbers and comparing them to the EPA numbers and what the vehicle was giving us. So the EPA estimated range for the R1T on the 21-inch wheels, quad motor at 100% state of charge is 328 miles. So using the battery pack size of the R1T, large pack of 135 kilowatt hours, that should give you an efficiency of 2.43 miles per kilowatt hour on average. And we don't know the actual usable capacity of the Rivian battery pack, so we'll just use that 135 kilowatts per hour. And the estimated range that the truck was giving us at 100% state of charge was 348 miles, so about 20 miles more than what the EPA range is. So that would give you even a better efficiency, 2.58 miles per kilowatt hours. And what we actually got driving from 100% down to 15% on the trip was 232 miles, and that would give you about 2.1 miles of kilowatt hours or miles per kilowatt hour. And that's really what I've been seeing ever since I got the truck. We're at 10,000 miles now, so you'd expect the efficiency to dip a little bit, but to be honest, that's what I've gotten since day one. Unless I'm driving on slower roads and going at a really low speed for a significant amount of time, that's the only time I really see an increased efficiency of like 2.3 to 2.35, maybe up to 2.4. And if you scaled that out for the rest of the 15% of the trip using that 2.1 miles a kilowatt hour, we would have seen about 285 miles on that trip. So a little bit lower than what the EPA range is. And, there's several things to consider with that. We were in conserved driving mode, which should have been beneficial. We were on the 21-inch wheels. But again, like I said, we're at 10,000 miles. We took multiple stops. Had my whole family with me. We had luggage with us. And we didn't precondition the vehicle or anything like that when we were driving. The outside temps were good for range. And then we were driving on the highway and going at speeds above 70 miles for quite a bit of the trip. So that can play into it as well. And for these larger vehicles like the R1T and other trucks and SUVs, the way the manufacturers get you that higher range is by adding additional battery pack. Right now, while they're still improving the efficiencies of their batteries and that technology is getting better, that's the way they do it. So you're counterbalancing adding additional battery to get additional range against the additional weight that comes in with those additional batteries. So it's kind of a dance, but seeing efficiencies of, in the twos when it comes to miles per kilowatt hour is pretty normal, pretty standard for these larger vehicles. So that's the range test in the real world for the R1T Quad Motor on the 21-inch wheels and with 10,000 miles of range on the vehicle, or really 10,500. So I hope you enjoyed watching that. If you do have any questions, let me know in the comments and I'll be sure to answer them. Let us know, as always, if there's anything else you want to see with this vehicle or any others. And as always, thanks for watching and hang loose, y'all.